You're Capricorn? Well, at least two of your predictions were correct. All right, thank you, Allison. Now, our next rouletter is about to share moments from her past lives thanks to regressive hypnosis. Please welcome Lila Webb. Webb? Oh my God, I looked at you and changed your name. Lila McCall.
My sister.
There we go.
I missed her.
I was just going to say. Saint Mister, yeah.
Cool.
I think it's time for you to change your name.
Yes.
Because I want to change your first
I've
name.
changed it enough times in my
Okay.
life. No more.
All right, sorry.
Have you ever had instinctive reactions to people and absolute immediate hatred for somebody who seems to be perfectly nice and really hadn't done anything to warrant it? How about love at first sight? How about a fleeting encounter with somebody that you seem to know so well that you could finish their sentences and yet you never saw them again? I've had many experiences like this, much as I think everyone has. I never thought about it much until the early 1980s when a friend told me about this little man who had regressed her by means of hypnosis and had helped her to understand how her past lives were influencing her life today. Not believing a word she said, I made an appointment with the hypnotist, a little man who had a very soft voice that reminded me somehow of a distant music, maybe a flute. On my first session, he had me lie down on a very comfortable couch in a room with dim lighting, barely audible music, faint aroma of tea roses, small fountain making lovely sounds. He started out just talking to me about relaxing, being comfortable, being safe. He suggested that I was floating out of my body and that I was going to a very different but very significant life. That I would see, hear, taste, and smell everything around me, but that it would only be a memory and that I was perfectly safe experiencing everything. His soft melodic voice slowly receded to be replaced by the sounds and smells of what must have been a marketplace of some kind. I could hear the cries of the vendors hawking their vegetables and fruits. I could smell the blood from freshly killed poultry. I could feel stones under my feet and see the sellers' stalls nestled under the ragged awnings next to walls made of what looked like adobe. The voice barely penetrated my consciousness as he asked me to look down at my feet and to tell him what I saw. I told him I had rough leather sandals on my feet and I was carrying a woven basket with vegetables in it. I was wearing a homespun tunic of some kind with a belt made of what looked like rope. The voice asked me what a typical day was like. I told him I had to get the fresh food every day and tend to the master's children. I was then told to look at myself on my last day. I was about the same age when I had first seen myself. I was running, terrified. I couldn't breathe through the thick, choking air. I woke up coughing. The little man assured me I was safe and that I was far, far away from that time. I sat up slowly, feeling more than a little disoriented. The little man asked how I had liked the first regression session. I was not convinced that A, I had actually lived before, or B, that I hadn't pulled the experience from somewhere in my subconscious. The little man smiled at me and told me to go home and think about it, see if I could relate anything that happened to what was happening now. Later that night, as I was falling asleep, I saw the same scenes again, this time in more detail. One of my friends was also there and was the wife of the household. I'd been a slave captured as a young child from a conquered people. The next morning when I woke up, I thought, okay, I still didn't know what I was supposed to learn from that life. Because I was fairly intrigued with the whole process, I made another appointment for the end of next week. This time, when he told me to look down at my feet, I couldn't see them for the voluminous skirt I had on. I was dancing with someone in a powdered wig who smelled strongly of something fairly sickly sweet. Under the sweet, he also smelled as though he hadn't had a bath in a long time. He smiled at me, and my present self recoiled at his bad teeth, even as my past self smiled back with equally bad teeth. We were in a large mirrored room with other people dancing in ornate gilding on the walls and mirrors. My feet hurt, my ribs hurt, where they were laced into a corset. How did women move in these things? And I had on no underwear. It was all a bit disconcerting. My typical day was a round of parties and food and changing clothes and gossiping, and I remember feeling extremely bored. This time when he told me to move ahead to my last day, I woke up screaming. My last day had been terror-filled. I'd been dragged back to the city from the countryside by an angry mob looking for anyone they considered an aristocrat. My twin brother was with me, and it was clear he blamed me for our predicament. He thought I'd given us away to those we were hiding from by my manners and prissiness, and I thought he'd opened his mouth at snuff box once too often. The last thing I remember seeing was a guillotine. I went through the routine several more times, looking at my feed, describing my clothes, my typical day, going forward to my last day. I saw many lives. Once as a young Native American boy who'd broken his neck in a freak accident playing a game on horseback. Once I was a peasant in what looked like medieval Europe who had died in my 30s from what felt like a heart attack while tilling a field. The very worst life I saw was as a child dying from starvation in the camps during World War II. I was 4. After several sessions, he said we were going to do something a little different. We would concentrate on my parents before I was born so that I could find out why I picked them as parents. This I was really skeptical about, even more so than the rest. Though I'd always loved my father, nobody in their right mind would have picked he and my mother as a set for parents. He told me that I would be floating above them and I was supposed to see why I had picked them. Well, I floated and I looked, and my only impression was that they were both babies that had no business having babies. They were barely out of high school and both had sheltered backgrounds. No wonder they were idiots in the parental department. I was told that that would be our last session, that I had enough material and knowledge to figure out why things happened the way they did. I still had no idea what a slave girl, a European peasant, a Native American boy, a spoiled rich girl, and a young Jewish child could tell me about the life I was living in 1984. Over the last 30 years or so since then, I have thought about all these experiences many times. They make far more sense now than they did then. When my neck hurts, I think about horses. When an instinctual hate of pomp and circumstance happens, I think of the French court. Maybe we all have lives to have things to work out with all these people that come and go out of our lives. Maybe we just have to keep on working on life until we get it right. I don't pretend to have any answers, but I sure think it's going to be an interesting ride to find out.